legacy items. By far what I think is my favorite system that we've actually managed to get into Rupture. It allows not only for story growth, as you have this item that is bound to your character, that is a part of your character, it allows for some amazing customization. And in our home test, we've done a lot of toying with it to see just how far we can push the system and still make it work. One of the more distinctive ones, and my absolute favorite I've done yet, is I had a legacy item that let me bring food to life as minions. Basically, instead of raising dead, I was raising meals. You can actually see that character. He is the older gentleman with the apron in our boat scene, and that was part of that playtest, was that character actually would do like a sandwich hippo by summoning. He would use the feast ability that you can get in the Earth, I believe, the Earth spell line, and would bring tiny pieces of his food and would use that as the core, summon a feast, and then turn that feast into a creature. So we had a few fun ones like the sandwich hippo, the fruit brawler, the spare rib snake. So you can really do some interesting things with legacy items if you feel so inclined. And really, that is what I encourage, is find something ridiculous and fun to do with your legacy item. So we try to make the system fairly simple. You have a flat mana cost. It's going to be 5 at the first level, and go up from there all the way to 20 attunement cost at your final level, which is, for the legacy item, level 5. Building the item is fairly simple by design. So, all you really have to do is come up with a concept. We've given you the really basic stuff like attributes or skills, where you can boost or debuff if you're using it against someone else, or even yourself. We actually saw one suggestion where it's like a cane that reduces your stats and makes you look like an old man, to where you are legitimately like old and sickly and weak, so that you would be in disguise and stuff like that. And when you drop the cane, suddenly you're back into your full youthful self. So you can use it any direction you want, but generally speaking, you would be using negative attributes, negative skills to other people, but creativity. It is really to the limitation of what you can think of. So, we have the basic stuff, like I said, attributes and skills, damage, healing, defense, and spell orders. And we have limitations that can go with that. Basically, you decide what concept you want, and then you work with your narrator to basically figure out, okay, how do we keep this fairly balanced? So if I wanted to use an item, let's use my little snake staff here. So if I wanted to, even though I'm not a mage, be able to cast fireball out of this thing's eyes, I'd say, okay, I want to basically have my legacy item. I want to do fire damage. So you'd look at the chart, your first level, you'd have 1d6 fire damage, and let's say 3 targets. Your boost would be the 1d6 damage. Your limitation would be the targets, maybe time per day, you can only do it 5 times, or maybe additional mana costs, because it's sort of a spell. Let's say you would just take the 10 mana you would need to cast it anyway. At that point, I'd take away the 5 uses per day, that way you're just spending mana. But you can really approach it any way you want. The goal is customization, and to make it unique to you. And really, it just comes down to the player and what concept they want, how creative they are, and the narrator going, okay, I need to balance this, and I need to put some limitations on this item. So your legacy items level with you up to level 3. Which is to say, the legacy items themselves can only go to level 3 by leveling with you. To get a legacy item to level 4 or 5, that requires some harder stuff. That requires major storyline completion or arcs that would be completed by your character. So, at first, it just kind of grows as you grow. But when it gets really powerful, and the 4 and 5, you get some pretty good spikes. They are very healthy with whatever your item's going to be doing. So your 4 and 5 require you to complete massive goals. Big storyline arcs, big character arcs, stuff like that. Now, when you level, instead of, let's say I've got my snake staff here, that's at level 2. Instead of taking this from level 2 to level 3, which would be, so I had the fiery snake eye thing going on. So instead of adding more damage or more targets, I'd say, okay, I want another ability on this. I want to be able to turn into a snake. So you would now have a level 1 ability, which would transform you into a snake. Let's say 5 minutes is the balance. And you would have a level 2 ability, which would be your fire that does 1d8 damage to 5 targets at once. So you can have multiple effects on one item. Or, again, as you level, you can have another item. So let's say I have my level 2 staff, but I want a mask that lets me see through walls. So I now have a level 1 ability on this mask and a level 2 ability on my snake. So that is my 3 levels. So you can see you get choices to distribute. Do I want more abilities on the same item? Do I want multiple items with different abilities? Do I want to just keep powering up the same item so it gets more efficient? As always with Rupture, the goal is to give you as much choice and as much customization as we can. So really, it is a simple process. This video, it does not require a super long tutorial. So I figured I would fill the rest of the time throwing off some crazy ideas that are a little bit just more than what the chart would normally give you, which is really, like I said, the basics. Damage, or defense, or healing, or some buffs or debuffs. So, I've been joking around with the fiery snake over here. I also suggested, okay, what if this thing let me turn into a snake? Which, motif I've got going here, I think that's very appropriate for this character. So, at level 1, it would be, okay, you can turn into a snake for 5 minutes. And you can do it 5 times per day. Okay, cool. If I were to level it, I would go, okay, do I want to get more time as a snake, which would go up to half an hour, or do I want more uses per day, which would be 10? So, you would go down that direction. Let's say I'm okay 5 times per day, but I want to be able to do it at a half hour a time. So, I'd go down that route. But let's say, okay, cool, I'm now a snake 5 times per day, I can stay in at half an hour. I want it to be a little more powerful. I want the ability to be able to go through walls while I'm a snake. Basically, a weird infiltration ability. So you'd go, okay, let's see if that'll work. Get approved with your narrator, and you do have that level 1 effect attached to it now, but you can see how it feeds into the other effects. So the main effect is turning into a snake. The secondary effect is turning your snake into a more powerful creature. So, snake staff that, I don't know, I almost forgot one major thing about legacy items. At level 1, you name your item. It is so attached to you, the item gets its legacy. It shares a piece of you by you naming it. So, I would probably call this, with my intention, the Ghost Snake Staff. Not the most creative name I know, but I'm literally making this up as I go. So, Ghost Snake Staff. Now, what if you want to go a different route? Let's say you want to make a crafter, and oftentimes you are doing alchemy. You need the magical ingredients to put into your cauldron. So let's say you have an item that gives you one ingredient that you desperately need. Not the rarest ingredients, not at level 1, too powerful, way too powerful. But something you just don't have. A middle level ingredient. As a narrator, I would say, okay, I would give you, instead of 5 times per day, I'm going to limit it just a little more. 3 times per day, you get one kind of medium difficulty to acquire ingredient that you're able to put into your potion, use your alchemy skill, and make something amazing. Because I think 5 times per day is a bit much, as if you're trying to make your own potions, and we leave that very open, basically succeed at alchemy, have fun. But, so I would limit a little bit. Now, going down that route, I might say, okay, do I want to get more uses per day out of it? Or do I want to be able to make more complex potions? I'd say, okay, let's go for the more complex potions. So now I'd be, okay, you can get hard to find ingredients. You know, the, giant basilisk venom, or the sweat of a hippogriff, the stuff that would be hard to acquire, but not the hardest. So I would allow that for more complex potions. Now, third level, the last level I can get to just by leveling with my item. I might say, okay, do I want to keep going on this? Maybe do I want to add some utility to my potions? Like, this becomes its own cauldron with a bunch of the ingredients already in, and all I have to do is heat it up and go. It is up to you and your creativity. To that end, I've actually had several characters where the legacy item was basically the whole character. I did not necessarily need the class. The class just gave me the extra skills that might help boost my item. My cook, for example, his whole thing was use the cooking skill, use the magic just to help make sure that I always have easy access to the food, but his whole fighting style was summon minions, send them out. That all happened through the legacy item. So you can put some heavy customization into these things. Alright, let's go for the last item. So in this case, I'm trying to build off the item itself. I've got this rainbow mask. So I'm trying to decide what would be representative of rainbow. I kind of like something that involves light, but you just kind of start wandering into illusions if you're creating light. Ooh, okay. Let's make this so a bardic type character or a social type character. So long as they activate their mask, they'll be able to see the color of people's emotions, giving them better insight to persuade or deceive or just get a gauge of where they're at. So you'd see angry people have like this red fiery effect around them. Sad people have this blue drooping effect. Really happy people have a yellow, maybe kind of bubbly effect around them. Narrator's discretion. Now for that one, let's say we want to go just a little bit off the chart. Instead of limiting it to uses per day, like I normally would, or like a time limitation that goes with that, let's say, okay, I want this to be on all the time. I want to always know what those around me are feeling and what their emotions around them are. So to limit that, what would be the best way? I could see like a small constant mana draw above the attunement cost. Like basically you would reduce the amount of mana you get back from your mana base. So let's say you get 8 back at a time. I'd reduce it down to 5 maybe, to where it basically represents there's always mana being drawn off of you. And maybe reduce your max mana just a little bit to kind of represent that it's always drawing. But again, it's always the creativity between the player and the narrator to do something interesting with it. And I really encourage, yeah, the chart is there and it gives you the basic idea. But there's so much above and beyond what you can do. And these items allow for such customization to the character. Again, one of my favorite systems that we developed. So I think that's in a nutshell. That is the basic idea of how to throw together legacy items, and a few random ideas for how a character might approach their legacy item. It doesn't just have to be, I have a sword that I put an extra 1d6 damage on. You can easily get that in the story, go find a crafter who can add some fiery effect to your sword. That is easy, that is mundane. And I'm not going to say that it's bad to do that. Very oftentimes, if you just have a fighter character that you just want to have more punch in, that's awesome. But you're not limited to just having more damaging effects or different damage types. You can have all kinds of utilities or things that make your character super unique and super them. So I'd consider that. Don't forget to naming. I forgot to name my, let's call it the Bottle of Need and the Truth Watcher mask. Alright, thank you everyone. As always, you can find all of our updates on rupturerpg.com. The blog is up and running now, so we've got information constantly coming through there. We've got all of our social media links you can go check out. Join the email list. We still have all kinds of incentives up for if you join early. Still handing out those special character classes that are super unique. And yeah, thanks for hanging out, and enjoy the world of Rupture.